Have you ever considered moving to Europe? So listen up. 3 major EU countries just changed their citizenship laws this year. One made it easier than ever, another nearly impossible, and a third is about to make changes that will shock you. Citizenship rules in Europe are wildly different between countries. Like the many ways the Portuguese invented to cook bacalhau. One country demands proficiency in one of the hardest languages in the world, while another requires no formal language test at all. Some countries request that you live there for 10 years to naturalize, others give you a passport after just 2 years of residency. I've analyzed all major requirements to rank the 27 EU countries in terms of easiness to obtain citizenship. The difference between the hardest and easiest passport to obtain will blow your mind. Some of these easy pathways are closing in 2025, so if you have been thinking about European citizenship, this ranking could save you years or cost you the opportunity entirely. The 4 key factors that make or break your EU citizenship dreams. I created this ranking system using 4 critical factors that reveal the real difficulty level to obtain each citizenship. Residence time carries the most weight at 40% because it's your biggest time investment. But here is where it gets tricky. Many countries require permanent residence, but before you become a permanent resident, you must be a temporary resident. So Austria, for example, requires 5 years of permanent residence to grant citizenship, but to obtain permanent residence, it often takes another 5 years of temporary residence. So that's actually 10 years total. That's what we consider in this ranking, the total time required. Language requirements get 30% weight, and it's interesting because I often see expats that only pay attention to their residence requirements, but end up failing to obtain citizenship because they never bother to learn the language. Let's take, for example, Estonia. They require 8 years of residence. It's less than Italy, which requires 10 years. But at the same time, Estonia requires proficiency in Estonian, one of the hardest languages in Europe. Some people reach the 8 years of residence required, but still are not proficient in Estonian to obtain citizenship. Integration tests get 20% weight, and dual citizenship restrictions get 10%. Disclaimer: Spain is excluded from this ranking due to a unique factor that makes citizenship either quite difficult or extremely easy. I will explain this at the end of the video. So let's start with the hardest citizenship in the European Union to obtain. 27th place is Slovenia. This is the hardest citizenship to obtain in the European Union, and once you hear the requirements, you will understand why most people give up before they even start. This Alpine country demands 10 years of continuous residence, but that's just the beginning of your challenges. You need B2 level proficiency in Slovenian, a language spoken by only 2.5 million people worldwide. The grammar includes 6 cases, dual number forms, and complex verb aspects that make even basic conversations difficult. Finding quality learning resources is nearly impossible outside Slovenia itself. Then comes the comprehensive civic knowledge test covering Slovenian history, culture, and legal system. You must demonstrate a deep understanding of everything from medieval kingdoms to modern parliamentary procedures. Another huge obstacle for some is that most applicants are required to renounce their original citizenship entirely. No dual nationality allowed. Slovenia essentially wants you to become completely Slovenian. Make it the hardest EU passport to obtain without investment. And by the way, I'm not saying that this is wrong. Every country has its reasons to have harsh or loose requirements. I am an expat consultant, not a political commentator, and I'm not here to judge immigration policies, but to help you with them. So if Slovenia seems tough, there is a Baltic country that rivals its requirements. 26. Estonia. Estonia might be famous for digital nomad visas, but getting actual citizenship there is a different story entirely. Despite being tech-forward, Estonia maintains some of the most traditional and demanding citizenship requirements in the EU. You need 8 years of legal residence, with the last 5 years on a permanent basis. Then comes the Estonian language proficiency examination, which gets waived only if you completed your education in Estonian within Estonia itself. Estonia belongs to the Finno-Ugric language family, making it completely unrelated to most European languages and extremely challenging for Western speakers. Think Finnish complexity, but with fewer learning resources available globally. You must also pass an examination covering the Estonian Constitution and Citizenship Acts, demonstrating deep knowledge of legal frameworks and civic responsibilities. I asked him in Estonia why the citizenship requirements are so harsh, and he told me that this prevents social division given the country's large Russian-speaking minority population. That is also one of the reasons that Estonia generally demands that applicants renounce their original citizenship and have loyalty only to Estonia. 25 is Slovakia. Slovakia appears in our research as one of the most challenging paths, with requirements that eliminate most casual applicants. The 8 years of continuous permanent residence is not among the highest, but the language requirement is where most people fail. Slovak language proficiency assessed through a demanding interview process that tests not just language, but cultural understanding. The interview covers Slovak history, geography, and social-political development. Then comes the real test. You must read aloud a randomly selected Slovak language press article of at least 500 words, then write a summary from memory after 30 minutes. Slovak's complex grammar system with multiple cases and intricate verb conjugations creates a significant barrier for most applicants. The language belongs to the West Slavic family, making it particularly challenging for non-Slavic speakers. Even after meeting all requirements, the Ministry of Interior can still reject applications. 24. Lithuania. For Lithuanian citizenship, you need 10 years of legal and permanent residence, which drops to 7 years if you are married to a Lithuanian citizen. Then comes the Lithuanian language, which creates an unexpected obstacle for most Europeans. Lithuanian is one of the oldest Indo-European languages, with a complex grammar and limited global presence. The archaic features and distinct linguistic structure make it particularly challenging for speakers of other language families. After that, you need to pass a constitutional knowledge test covering the basics of Lithuanian constitution, governance, and societal norms. There are exemptions for those aged 65 or older and individuals with certain work incapacities, but most applicants face the full requirements. Lithuania generally requires renouncing your previous citizenship. They want citizens who are truly committed just to the Lithuanian identity. 23. Denmark. Denmark has one of the most unusual citizenship processes in the European Union. Your application must literally be approved by the parliament. The B2 Danish language requirement is just the entry ticket to a process where politicians vote on your citizenship application. Here is how it works. Even after you meet all technical requirements, you must be listed in a naturalization bill that gets passed by the Danish parliament. Politicians actually vote on whether you become a citizen. The general residence requirement is 9 years for permanent residence holders, but Nordic citizens only need 2 years. You also need to demonstrate general knowledge of Denmark and declare allegiance to the country. And Denmark at least allows dual citizenship, which helps, but the parliamentary approval system creates uncertainty and can extend processing time significantly. You could meet every single requirement perfectly and still face rejection based on the political zeitgeist. Our next country takes a more traditional approach, but maintains high standards. 22. Poland. The rules in Poland have many exceptions and variations, but in general, you need close to a decade for naturalization. Unless you have Polish ancestors, then it's much faster, but today I'm ranking easiness to obtain citizenship by residence, not by ancestry. If you would like me to make another episode ranking the countries by easiness to obtain citizenship by ancestry, let me know in the comment section. I have lived in Poland for almost 8 years, and I'm still not a citizen, for example. This process can be shortened if you have a Polish family member, or if you do something extraordinary and write a petition to the president. But in general, you need between 7 to 10 years of total residency, temporary plus permanent. But even after 10 years, you will face a comprehensive evaluation that goes beyond basic language skills. You need B1 Polish language proficiency, which means mastering one of Europe's most complex grammatical systems. Polish use 7 cases that affect nouns, adjectives, and pronouns differently. The pronunciation includes sounds that don't exist in most other languages, making it particularly challenging for non-Slavic speakers. Poland's citizenship process emphasizes cultural integration and understanding of Polish history and traditions. While there is no separate civic test, authorities expect you to demonstrate genuine integration into Polish society through your language skills and cultural knowledge. Poland's lengthy process ensures that new citizens have genuine cultural understanding and are well adapted to the local customs. 21. Bulgaria. Bulgaria offers EU citizenship at a lower cost of living, but the path there involves navigating complex bureaucratic requirements. The residence requirements seem straightforward until you encounter the Bulgarian administrative system and language demands. You need 5 years of permanent residence, but getting permanent residence first requires temporary residence, extending your total timeline to probably 7 or more years. The Bulgarian language requires Cyrillic script, which presents a significant learning challenge for those accustomed to the Latin alphabet. You must demonstrate sufficient proficiency in speaking, reading, and writing Bulgarian, assessed through an interview conducted in Bulgarian. You also face a civic knowledge test during your interview covering Bulgarian history and constitution, plus demonstrate your motives for seeking citizenship. Bulgaria generally requires renouncing all other nationalities, adding another barrier. 20. Austria. In Austria, the 10-year residence requirement is just the beginning. Austria is one of the few Western European countries that generally requires you to renounce your previous citizenship. You also need 10 years of continuous legal residence, but at least 5 of those years must be as a permanent resident. You must demonstrate German language proficiency and pass a comprehensive civic test covering Austrian history, culture, and legal system. You also need to prove irreproachable integrity and sufficient financial resources. Austria's strict approach to dual citizenship creates the biggest barrier. Unlike Germany, which now allows dual nationality, Austria demands you to choose. Limited exceptions exist for those married to Austrian citizens or deemed exceptionally integrated. 19. Greece. Greece offers you citizenship after 7 years of residence in the country, but the language requirement creates an extra barrier. Greek proficiency means mastering not just a different alphabet, but one of Europe's most complex grammatical systems. The Greek alphabet presents an immediate challenge since you must learn entirely new characters before even starting with vocabulary. Unlike widely spoken languages, Greek learning resources are limited and less accessible than materials for English, French, or Spanish. You must pass a citizenship test consisting of 20 multiple-choice questions covering Greek history, culture, geography, and government with a minimum score of 80%. After the written exam, you face an interview with ministry representatives who evaluate your Greek language skills and cultural understanding. The entire process can take up to 3 years. But it might be worth it if you'd like paying high taxes, because Greece has one of the lowest income taxes for expats in Europe. And the best cuisine too, but that's just my opinion. But Americans need to remember, even in low-tax Greece, you are still required to file US returns. My expat taxes make this painless and affordable for expats like you. They handle all the complexity so you can focus on enjoying your new European life. Also, some might be surprised to see Greece among the hardest countries to obtain citizenship, since to gain residence by investment there is relatively easy. But this ranking focuses on citizenship, not residence by investment programs. Let me know in the comments if you'd like a future video on investment-based golden visa options. 18. Latvia. Latvia completes the Baltic Challenge with requirements that reflect their strong linguistic identity. Latvian language requirements are particularly strict given the country's history and efforts to preserve their linguistic heritage after decades of occupation. You need 10 years of legal residence for naturalization, including 5 years of permanent residence after obtaining temporary status first. The Latvian language proficiency test represents a significant linguistic barrier for most applicants. Like Lithuanian, Latvian belongs to the Baltic language family, with distinct grammatical structures and vocabulary that requires dedicated study. The comprehensive citizenship test covers Latvian culture, history, and constitution. You must also memorize the lyrics of the Latvian national anthem, Dievs svētī Latviju. The test assesses your understanding of Latvia's constitution and historical struggles for independence. Latvia generally permits dual citizenship with EU and NATO countries, Australia, New Zealand, and Brazil. 17. Italy. Italy is one of my favorite countries in Europe, and in southern Italy they have one of the most attractive tax schemes for expats in Europe. But the path to citizenship involves navigating legendary Italian bureaucracy. While Italian language might seem approachable, the administrative process can turn a straightforward application into years-long odyssey. You need 10 years of legal residence, which represents one of the longest requirements in Europe. Even EU nationals face effectively 9 years total when you count the permanent residency requisite. The B1 Italian language proficiency requirement became standard for all naturalization cases requiring intermediate-level communication skills. The good news is that Italian is a quite straightforward language to learn, and it becomes even more straightforward with the right tools. Linqui is the secret weapon for learning Italian and other European languages that I recommend to my clients. Scan the QR code to check how good it is. In Italy, the bureaucratic maze creates the real challenge. Processing time is very dramatically depending on which region handles your application. Documentation requirements include extensive paperwork with apostille certifications and certified Italian translations for all foreign documents. Regional variations in application handling mean different interpretations of requirements and varying efficiency levels. 16. The Netherlands. To acquire Dutch citizenship, you need 5 years of continuous legal residence, dropping to 3 years if you are married to a Dutch citizen and living together. While 5 years is relatively short when compared to some of the countries in this ranking, the Dutch requirement of passing a civic integration exam elevates difficulty. It's called the inburgeringsexamen. I'm not sure if I said correctly. If I said wrong, correct me in the comment section. It is applied in Dutch language and requires knowledge of Dutch culture, history, and social norms. The Netherlands generally requires renouncing your current nationality, though some exceptions exist. 15. Finland. Finland offers Nordic quality of life and demands 8 years of residence for citizenship, but Finnish language requirements create a unique obstacle for most Europeans. Finnish belongs to the Finno-Ugric family, making it completely unrelated to other European languages and extremely difficult to learn. You can't rely on cognates or familiar grammatical structures when learning Finnish. The language employs 15 grammatical cases that govern how nouns, pronouns, adjectives, and verbs change form depending on their function. This creates a steep learning curve for anyone accustomed to simpler grammatical structures. You must demonstrate proficiency through the Civil Service Language Proficiency Certificate or the National Certificate of Language Proficiency test. But here's some good news. You can opt for a Swedish language test instead of Finnish. While Swedish isn't a piece of cake, it's way easier than Finnish. Way easier. 14. Hungary. Now we are entering to the realm of countries that have medium difficulty to obtain citizenship. None of the next countries I will mention ask you to renounce your original citizenship, and most of them require less than 10 years of residence. The first on this medium tier is Hungary, in 14th place. Hungary's unique position in Central Europe comes with citizenship requirements that reflect their distinct cultural identity. Hungarian language, another Finno-Ugric language, presents similar challenges to Finnish, and it has even more grammatical cases. Hungarian grammar uses an agglutinative structure, where suffixes get added to root words to indicate grammatical functions like tense, case, and possession. This creates long and complex words as multiple suffixes pile onto the root. You need 8 years of continuous residence for naturalization, so this drops to 3 years for recognized refugees, a stateless person, or those married to Hungarian citizens. Applicants over 60 years old get exempted from the test. 13. Romania. Romania offers you citizenship with much lower living costs, and if you ever dreamed of becoming a farmer in an idyllic scenario, that might be a good choice. To obtain Romanian citizenship, you need 8 years of continuous legal residence, though this drops to 5 years if you are married to a Romanian citizen and 4 years for recognized refugees. You must demonstrate proficiency in the Romanian language and possess basic notions of Romanian culture and civilization sufficient for social integration assessed through an interview. Despite the location in Eastern Europe, Romania has a Romance language. The grammar follows familiar patterns for speakers of Spanish, Italian, or French, though it includes unique features like definite articles attached to nouns. It's much easier than any Slavic language, but I would say, and probably Romanians will agree with me in the comment section, that it's the hardest of all Romance languages, exactly due to the Slavic influences. The country permits dual citizenship, which removes a major barrier for many applicants. 12. Croatia. Croatia, the EU's newest member, has developed citizenship requirements that reflect their recent EU integration experience. You need 8 years of continuous residence plus permanent residence status. This requirement drops to 3 years if you are married to a Croatian citizen. Croatian language proficiency gets assessed through an approved language test, though individuals over 60 receive exemptions. There is also a cultural test administered by a police officer. The naturalization process takes between 12 and 24 months from application submission, a relatively fast processing time, but not as fast as the time it would take for you to subscribe to this channel and like this video, and this would be really good and helpful for us. 11. Czechia. For Czech citizenship, you need 5 years of continuous residence with permanent residence status, though close family members of EU citizens only need 2 years. B1 Czech language proficiency is mandatory. Czech belongs to the West Slavic language family with 7 grammatical cases that affect how nouns and adjectives change based on their sentence function. As a Polish speaker, I find Czech remarkably similar. It's like Polish, but with some weird sounds. You must also pass an exam covering the Czech constitutional system, plus cultural, historical, geographical, and societal knowledge. You also need to show 3 years of clean legal record and proof of income. 10. Cyprus. Starting our top 10 of the easiest countries to obtain citizenship by residence, Cyprus is a curious case. Because of their low tax incentives, their citizenship is very attractive, something I covered in a previous video. You need 7 years of legal residence, but here is where things start to get interesting. You can reduce that time if you prove fluency in Greek language, and if you are married to a Cypriot citizen, you only need 3 years of continuous residence. The language requirement offers real flexibility. If you put the effort to learn Greek and reach B1 level, you can become a citizen in just 5 years. Additional requirements like a clean criminal record apply. You must also show sufficient knowledge of contemporary Cypriot political and social reality, plus demonstrate commitment to integration. Cyprus permits dual citizenship, removing a major barrier that eliminates many other EU options. The strategic location and, at the risk of sounding repetitive, the tax incentives make the country a very attractive option. And again, if you are American, remember that My Expat Taxes is specialized in helping Americans abroad navigate tax complexities and save money. So check out with them, it can give you a lot of peace of mind. 9th place, France. Now we are coming for countries where to obtain citizenship is relatively accessible in a short period of time. France has quick requirements for residence time, just 5 years, and this drops to 2 years for those completing higher education in France or making exceptional contributions in science, culture, or sports. They also permit dual citizenship, so you don't need to renounce your previous passport. However, if you ever visited France, probably you are aware that they have a doses of zealous for their beloved language, hard to find anywhere else. And the process to obtain French citizenship reflects that. You need B2 French proficiency in both oral and written forms, with a valid certificate issued within 2 years. The upper intermediate level requirement ensures you can handle everyday conversations and understand standard French on familiar topics, and also not get offended by some bitter Parisian. France assesses your assimilation in the French community through knowledge of French history, culture, and society, and the government provides a citizen's book covering required knowledge about French institutions, history, and principles. 8. Belgium. Belgium, home to some of the most important EU institutions, has citizenship requirements that are surprisingly straightforward. Language requirements vary by region, creating different pathways depending on where you establish residence. If you live in the Flemish region, you need Dutch proficiency. In Wallonia, French is required. The German-speaking community demands German skills. This regional approach means your location determines your language challenge entirely. You need 5 years of continuous legal residence plus proof of social integration. Spouses of Belgian citizens only need 5 years of residence and 3 years of marriage. Belgium has no problems with new citizens keeping their previous citizenships. From Belgium, we jump into the top 7 countries. These are places where citizenship is feasible in a short period of time with fewer obstacles. But before I review it, I have some really good news. My Expat Wealth and Lifestyle Compass, valued at $180, is yours free for a limited time. Receive our 74-page analysis of affordable cities in Spain, Italy, and France, our guide for zero-income tax countries that can save you up to $15,600, and the checklist that prevents costly mistakes. Don't let your chances go away. Scan this QR code now and join us for free. 7th place, Luxembourg. Who would guess that one of the richest countries in the world also has one of the most accessible passports to obtain in Europe? You need just 5 years of legal residence, with only the final year required to be uninterrupted. If you're married to a Luxembourgish citizen, you can get citizenship after 3 years of marriage, even while living outside Luxembourg. The Luxembourgish language requirements are B1 for speaking and A2 for listening. These levels are surprisingly lower than the B2 requirements in countries like Denmark or Greece. You must complete the Vivre ensemble au Grand-Duché de Luxembourg course or pass the related test covering Luxembourg's history, culture, and societal values. The combination of short residence requirements, manageable language standards, and dual citizenship acceptance creates an accessible path to become a citizen of this wealthy country. 6. Portugal. Portugal currently offers one of Europe's most accessible citizenship paths, but massive changes are coming that will shock applicants. The current 5-year requirement with A2 Portuguese proficiency is about to become 10 years with additional tests, a complete transformation. The A2 Portuguese language requirement requires an exam, and it's a basic level that most people can achieve with moderate effort. And Portuguese is not difficult at all. I speak it fluently. Here's the problematic part. A draft law published in June 2025 proposes increasing the general residence requirement to 10 years for most applicants. The upcoming changes also include stricter language requirements, though specific details are still pending. 50th place, Germany. Germany just revolutionized the EU citizenship acquisition with changes that took effect in June 2024, transforming it from restrictive to attractive. The country that once demanded you renounce your original citizenship now embraces dual nationality, a complete philosophical shift. The new residence requirement dropped from 8 years to just 5 years, and even better, Germany introduced a 3-year fast track for exceptional integration. This accelerated pathway rewards people who demonstrate special integration efforts, like volunteer work. You still need B1 German proficiency through recognized tests like Goethe certificate, or you can prove it with German education credentials. The Life in Germany test covering the legal system and social norms remains mandatory unless you have relevant German degrees. You must also demonstrate financial stability, maintain a clean criminal record, and declare commitment to democratic principles. 4. Malta. Malta offers something unique so far in this ranking. English, as an official language, removes the biggest barrier for many applicants. While English proficiency helps enormously, Malta still requires good knowledge of Maltese. But how strictly is this enforced? Here is where Malta gets interesting. They don't specify a particular level for English or Maltese proficiency. No formal language test requirement exists, which contrasts sharply with countries demanding B1 or B2 certificates. The residence requirement works differently too. You need 12 months of continuous residence immediately before applying, plus 4 years aggregate during the preceding 6 years. This effective 5-year timeline ranks among the shorter requirements in the EU. Malta permits dual citizenship without restrictions, so you keep your original passport. This combination of short residence requirements, familiar language, and dual citizenship acceptance creates one of the most accessible paths to EU citizenship for English speakers. And now we will enter the top 3 countries with even easier or simpler requirements for citizenship. Third, Ireland. Ireland emerges as the third most accessible EU citizenship with requirements that eliminate most traditional barriers. With no formal language test, no civic knowledge exam, and only 5 years required, it seems almost too good to be true. This flexible calculation lets you count periods of residence that don't need to be consecutive, so you just need to live there in 5 of the last 9 years to become a citizen. The good character assessment requires a clean criminal record and no serious driving offenses. You must also make a declaration of loyalty to Ireland during the citizenship ceremony, committing to respect the rule of law. No standardized language exams, no memorizing constitutional articles, no tests. Ireland's streamlined process, English language environment, and full dual citizenship acceptance creates a path that is almost as easy as the next country. Sweden. Sweden claims the top spot in our ranking with a combination of features that it's the most accessible citizenship path. While not as convenient as Ireland for English speakers, Sweden's overall requirements create the lowest barriers for the widest range of applicants. Sweden requires just 5 years of habitual residence, dropping to 3 years if you are married to a Swedish citizen, and currently Sweden has no formal language test requirement for citizenship. There is also no explicit civic or cultural knowledge test under current rules. Sweden permits dual citizenship, allowing you to keep your original passport while gaining Swedish nationality. But here is an important time information. Major changes are coming in the second half of 2025. The residence requirement might increase to 8 years, and Sweden might introduce a B1 Swedish language test for reading and listening plus A2 for writing and speaking. They are also planning to add a comprehensive exam covering Swedish culture, history, geography, and civic knowledge. So this is your ranking, but wait! At the beginning, I said I would rank 27 countries, and I just ranked 26. There is one lacking, and it's the one I mentioned at the very beginning of this video, a complete outlier, a country that might be even easier than Sweden or more difficult than most on this list. It all depends on where you come from and a certain doses of colonial history. Spain. Spain operates a fascinating 2-tier citizenship system where your background dramatically affects your timeline. The difference between 2 years and 10 years depends entirely on your nationality or heritage, creating wildly different experiences for applicants. If you are from Latin America, Portugal, or have Sephardic Jewish ancestry, you get the fast track with just 2 years of legal residence. Everyone else faces the standard 10-year requirement that is 5 times longer for the same passport. The privileged groups also get major exemptions. No Spanish language test required, even though others need A2 proficiency. No renouncing your original citizenship either, while standard applicants must choose between passports. Additional fast tracks exist for specific situations. Refugees need 5 years, those married to Spanish citizens get citizenship in just 1 year, and Spain's dual system reflects their historical connections and colonial past. If you are from one of the countries that qualify for fast-track citizenship, Spain becomes one of Europe's easiest passports to obtain in just 2 years. If you don't, it ranks among the most demanding with that 10-year wait. Now you might be thinking, where to live in these countries? What are the best cities in Europe for an expat to move and enjoy his golden years while spending less? Thinking about that, I made my most important video ever, where I selected the best cities to live in Europe. It's by far our greatest video, and you can watch it by clicking on this icon here on your left. And join my Patreon for all the sources, charts, and maps from our videos, plus a chat, so I can answer your questions. Tier 2 includes my top 3 ebooks on living and retiring abroad. Scan the QR code today.